All right, here we go.
Wonder Woman 1984 is directed by Patty Jenkins, stars Gal Gadot, Chris Pine, Kristen Wiig, and Pedro Pascal. Now this time Wonder Woman is set in the 80s. We got a sequel finally after all this time. I actually thought we were never going to see this movie until like next year or 2022 or whatever, but we finally got to see it, and I must say the movie is fun, but it's a very messy movie. Now I'm going to go parts and parts. Now first, Gal Gadot back as Wonder Woman, and Diana is great. She gives a great performance again. She's really great in the movie. And this time her character goes to because I was really hoping what they would do with her character this arc. And this arc, her character is actually going through some changes, which I actually like, but unfortunately are not executed as well as I think they could have been. This is the problem with a lot of characters. Like I feel like they start up their character motivation and build up, but they never fall through with it. They never exaggerate it. They never go fully through it. They just stop like in the middle of it or the beginning of it. And a character arc, like I said, it becomes messy that way, and this comes with a lot of characters. The character arcs becomes messy. They start off good, but then they always don't know where to end. But they still done it in a good way. But you know, like something was missing right there. We see Diana roaming around the streets alone, having dinner alone. You can really see she's still grieving. She's still how much the death of Chris Pine's character impacted her, and how much it still holds on to her, and how much she's not ready to move forward yet from that. And which of course Chris Pine shows up in this movie. He really gives a great performance because this time the roles are reversed since he's back now in the 80s and he's never been to the 80s, so it's kind of like the fish out of water story we had with Diana in the first one, where she comes to the world and he shows her London and all the cities, and this time Chris Pine is the fish out of the water one, and Diana is the one who shows Steve all the 80s and all its glory and cheesy, because this movie has some really cheesy 80s moment, and for most of the part that chemistry is really well. Like Chris Pine and Gal Gadot really have good chemistry with each other. They're really funny. Chris Pine has some really funny moments. The way he reacts to the new world, coming back from the First World War. There's some really great moments, and their chemistry are good. Now we also introduce here to Kristen Wiig's character, Barbara, who is like the social outcast, nobody likes her, the dark, nobody listens, she's invisible. Kristen Wiig gives a good performance, just the problem is it's not set up believable. I mean, Hollywood still does that if you put glasses on a girl and tie her hair up, that she is unattractive, nobody wants her, which is still like so dumb really to see. And even though, okay, maybe it's been like that in the 80s, but even though in the movie, like I was sure, this is how she looks like in the movie as a potentially as a outcast, and this is how she looks when she starts feeling herself, when she starts getting her powers as Cheetah. It's not a much difference. Like even in the scene where she first time discovers, all she does is take off one piece of clothing. She has some skinny leggings and opens up her hair, and that's basically it, and she looks good and everybody respects her. So they're really, I don't know what the problem is. Like if you really want to make her really like dorky, like an outcast, you can really do that. I mean, Anchorman did a better job with Kristen Wiig in that movie, and she looks more believable as a dark there. I think they could have done it better because you don't really feel sorry for the character. I mean, yes, there's some bad things happen to the character, but like more in the light-hearted way. Like it's hard to really feel like her pain or something. Their character arcs, they didn't really go through with it, like they stopped, like, because she still looks great even when she's supposed to be a dork, and she looks amazing, of course, when she, has all the makeup, but like, it's not believable. Like, there's so many different ways you could make that person, look so, I'll say unattractive, but like so different for her to then relate when she has this change, it becomes day and night. It's kind of like, for example, Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns. That is believable. You can see how her whole attitude, everything swift and changes. What happens too, but her visually, the looks, the way she acts is completely different than when she was from Max's secretary until she became Catwoman. And I think they were trying to do it here because the characters obviously has a lot of similarities, it's all DC, but I feel like they didn't feel through. Now Kristen Wiig, like I said, she gives a good performance, and it's lots of goods. I really like when she's first starting to feel her powers and starting to become, Cheetah and all that. It really starts great. But then kind of she like skips out of the movie for like a good chunk of it, and then kind of pops back in. And even when we see her as Cheetah in the final act, it really looks great. Unfortunately, it's a dark location, but she still looks great. She's menacing. Just the problem is there's also no build-up with her and Diana. There's no build-up between her and Wonder Woman. Like, this whole movie's missing this build-up of this great fight we're gonna get at the end. It kind of just happens. And it's not that, it's not that anticlimactic, it's not that awesome to see. Like, you always want to see that build-up of a character. And the problem is because they set back her character, like, for a big part of the movie, and then kind of just throw her back in. Oh yeah, we still have Cheetah. And they have a rivalry now. It's set up really quick. Like, the last half an hour is where she pops back in, and then suddenly they're supposed to have, like, this rivalry and big fight coming up. This build-up missing, this tension between those characters who barely they fought once, and the fight was okay, but even the way they're fighting style, I must really say, the action is fine when Diana has to take out tanks and cars and this all great, but when she fights Cheetah, it's not the same. It's a lot of just push, the character falls, and then a lot of swinging around. Like, it's not, I don't know, the fighting is not as intense as it was like in the first movie. So that was kind of missing in the movie. And I wish if we would had her early on, then I think there would be a better build-up for those two characters. Because the characters are great, you have great actors, you have everything great in it, but Cheetah kind of comes in the last minute out of nowhere in this story arc and in this whole movie. Now, the best performance in the movie and my favorite character was Max Lord, portrayed by Pedro Pascal, aka the Mandalorian. At first it was kind of like hard for me like to see him act without his helmet on because I love the Mandalorian so much. I've seen Pedro Pascal in other movies, but like I got so used to him wearing that helmet. To see him without it the whole time was kind of like off-putting at first. But Pedro Pascal is the one who can really gives the best performance and has the biggest blast and most fun portraying the character. I mean, yes, you can see everybody has fun being in the movie, but nobody has so much fun with his character like Pedro Pascal. I mean, he's really one who saves the movie. He's over the top. He's super charismatic. He's a struggling businessman who tries to, become one of the greatest of all time. And he's very persuasive. He basically, put on a big charade. And Maxwell's after this object that can get him to his goal. Now, unfortunately, this is a kind of story arc we've seen with many villains. Like, this is one powerful object that the villain wants, and when he gets it, then, he'll rule the world or whatever, It's like, it's the typical thing. There's a little misstep about the movie. Like, it's a lot of typical traits we have seen, like, before in superhero movies. But it's kind of logical. I mean, there are so many superhero movies, it's hard to come, like, with a new, fresh story. Like, you're gonna have some cliches in there, which is still fine because Pedro Pascal plays it so awesomely as the villain that it's just so much fun. Now, he also has a son in the movie, and the relationship with his son in the movie, I think, could have been set up better or portrayed better. It's kind of like this thing, it's like, oh yeah, he has a son. And then you kind of forget about it, and then you just, oh right, he still has a son. Like, it's like I said, the movie is really messy with the character developments also. Like, it starts up character developments and motivations, and then they either don't fall through, or they stop, or they don't go all the way, with some yes, with some no. It becomes a very messy thing. And like I said, he wants this object. Now, this object, I feel like, and it's not from DC Comics, it's not from old comic book, I could find nothing, because it's this one object what I really think also makes like a lot of problems in the movies. I tried to search online if there was anything in any comics about this object, or to see is it something that they made up, or is it something like from the comic book source. Because I say if it's something from the comic book source, okay, that has like, I would say, more credibility than something they just made up. Now I couldn't find anything. If anybody knows about the object, you know what I'm talking about, which Lord Maxwell wants so much, let me know, because I don't know that much of comic book history. But for what I couldn't find anything about it. So they made it up, this one object that, you know, that is sort of like the creates all this chaos of everything that's going on, and Max Lord, you know, getting his hands on it and everything. The problem is that one object makes basically this whole movie possible. Like if you would look at the script and they say, we want to have Chris Pine back, we want to have this happen, we want to have Cheetah, we want to have this, we want to have this, we want to have this, we want to have this. But then you see like, okay, we cannot do that because, well, one character is dead, this, that. Oh, okay, we just put this object in. And it will fix everything. And it fixes everything because that object, really, anything that needs to happen for the plot happens because of that thing. So it kind of just like, you know, it's kind of, I feel like an excuse. Like, oh no, we did something. Oh, there it is. You know, it has like this moment. Like it's not a big mystery around it. You know pretty soon what it is. And I really would love to have like some more mystery around. Now we also have Wonder Woman who's starting to lose her powers because a lot of weird things are starting to happen, and it's really shown in a fun way. Also, she flies in this movie this time, but it's not completely noticed. Does she fly, or does she, you know, carries herself out with the lasso, or does she swings on the lightning all the time? Like it's not completely said. Like can she really fly? Because we should see some new powers with Wonder Woman here, and it's not completely explained. So I don't know what the gist of this yet. But the third act of the movie was unfortunately disappointing. Like I said, because like I said, we were so focused on Wonder Woman and Maxwell, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, we still have Kristen Wiig in this movie as Chia. So the third act, when we're finally supposed to have this epic showdown, it's unfortunately very disappointing. The showdown between Wonder Woman and Chia, I wish would have been way longer, way more entertaining, way more intense, that I know Patty Jenkins can make, because that scene in Wonder Woman 1 where she steps on a battlefield and that's just against regular soldiers was so awesome, like really a great action set piece. And this time there's good action in it, but it's not the same like in the first one. And I feel like, I don't know if there were budget cuts or anything that was going on, but like you could feel like they kind of went like the short route, because the fight doesn't last very long, and it's the same as like with the villain, when, you know, that it's not such a big, you know, epic battle, which it's okay, I don't need, but like even, you know, the fighting and how the whole movie resolves at the end is kind of really underwhelming, disappointing, and I wish we would kind of have something a little more grander, a little more fun, and a little more epic, I would say, in this movie. That also, another problem is with this movie sometimes does not look finished. I mean, because we started the movie off with young Diana and Themyscira, and we get a shot of one Amazonian swinging with a rope, and you can see that's CGI, like, bad CGI. I was really surprised. I was so like, oh, yeah, that's not finished. Like, I don't know, there's some shots in this movie that you can totally see that's green screen. I mean, of course they use green screen, but like, it's so weird, because the first one was, the green screen and the effects were better, and in this one, I feel like sometimes they were not finished completely, because there were scenes where you could completely see that it's a fake environment, especially on Themyscira, it's supposed to be just a beautiful place. It kind of takes you out of the movie, especially for me. But at such a level, I think should not be made. I mean, even though we have a pandemic going on and everything, that could have maybe affected, but still, like, there are some moments where it kind of takes you out of the movie, because you really can see, ooh, it's not completely finished. It does. So those are, like, I would say, the other aspects of the movie that I kind of like, hey, no. And like I said, because there's no real actual story, because the movie goes here and there, there's no structure, you know, there's no A, B, C, there's like A, G, D, like the characters go all over the place, which is fine, but like there's no structure, you know, of the characters going. The character doesn't have a real goal in this movie. Like Diana had a goal in the first movie, I want to succeed this. And this time in this movie, she kind of does it, but she doesn't really have like a goal or motivation or why, you know. And I don't need some big praise moment like, this is what I have to do, but like something like you kind of feel like, okay, she's in the 80s. And then she solves crime in the 80s. Like, she fights bad guys in the 80s. That's basically it. For mysterious reasons, losing her powers and her love coming back, which is good. But, you know, after everything resolves, it kind of leaves like, okay, I wish I would kind of have like a little more hint on what would come next in the movie. But it was still an enjoyable movie. Like I said, there are messy parts of the story. I think the story suffers the most, and that one object that they set in, because that really the object just helps the plot to move along how it wants to, and the story is really more focused, because you really don't have you have a villain, but then you kind of have like another villain and the hero and this, and you don't know who the hero wants or knows. Like, the story becomes messy for some way. It's more like an enjoyable, you know, popcorn movie, just sit back and relax. But as a continuation, like, this movie kind of feels a little bit like a filler movie in some ways. Like, because it's set in the 80s, it's, you know, it doesn't move forwards like the next chapter of the Justice League or whatever. It kind of feels like, so this is what Wonder Woman did in the 80s. Cool. Moving on. You know, it kind of has that vibe. Like, if you want to watch it, you will probably enjoy it. I still enjoyed it. I just noticed that there was some problems with this movie, and the story was a little bit messy, but forever once in a while, you know, just want to sit back, watch Wonder Woman kick some ass, yeah, put it on. You know, you definitely enjoyed it in that sense of way. Now I'm going to give this movie a 5 out of 10. Now, Wonder Woman 1984. Let me know what you think about it. I think it was just some parts were missing, some parts were not completely finished. But thanks everybody for watching, and as always, see you next time.